Welcome to part 2 of a series where I watch every single superhero movie ever made. This video will feature 18 movies from the years 1990 through 1999. If you have not watched the first part of this series, I recommend you do so, as this video will help you see the progress before your own eyes. But for those who have already seen that video, hello, it's good to be back. I'm excited to discuss this decade and the 18 movies it has for us. 8 more than the last decade. A number I expect to climb higher in the next decade or two. I would also like to correct myself about the last video about a comment I had during the Donald Duck review. The Donald Duck review? I would like to correct myself about the last video about a comment I had during the Howard the Duck review. I talked about how Marvel was down on its luck during that time when it didn't go through any of that until the mid-90s. So keep that in mind when we cross paths with a few movies. This decade has given me many feelings. In the last video, I had hope for most of the movies. I never wanted to see the worst. That would not only weaken the video, but it would weaken me. And I have been hit hard by this decade. I felt hope. But the majority of the time, I was submitted to the worst possible mistakes a creative team could ever have. But that does not mean I did not experience joy. It was here and there, and it kept me going. But I will admit, I did have to run away from one. But no good story begins in the middle. We are now in the 90s, a time of rebelling, great expansions, and dismantles of power. A decade that grew with its generation. If I happen to miss any movie from this decade, please leave a comment below. You can also give a like and a subscription if that is something you would like to do. I would greatly appreciate it. It won't truly affect my desire to do this series, but I would never turn down support from any of you kind people. Speaking of support, and this is not an ad by the way, this is not an ad. Technically, for me, it's an ad for me. Because I don't see any future like making money from these videos because I use copyrighted music from the movies because I like showing them off because a lot of them are like really good, especially for like trash movies. They have some of the best soundtracks and I love using them, and it's just I don't like using non-copyrighted music, you know. There could be some leeway. I don't care about making money off of the views. Definitely not gonna have those for a while. But if you do want to support me, I have a book I wrote. If you want to check that out, if it sparks your interest, if you want to read it, I would greatly appreciate it being bought. If you want that, you don't really have to. Just watching this video, subscribing, liking, sharing, all that dumb, like, increasing followers stuff I have to say. But just watching this video also completely helps. So no matter what you do, thank you for being here. If you check it out, thank you. And yeah, back to the video. Now, without further ado, I'm going to stop yapping and jump right into the first movie, Ninja Turtle style. Looks like we're starting with an absolute banger. I wish I had seen this movie as a kid. It has the same charm and passion that something like the SpongeBob movie has. As an adult, I can have plenty of enjoyment from it, but I feel like the main demographic of young children would enjoy it so much more, but I still have to review it just like any other movie. Just because it was made for young viewers doesn't stop the train of criticisms. But let's start with the positives. It would be hard to talk about this movie without acknowledging the great costumes for the stuntmen wearing the turtle outfits. The beautiful craftsmanship from Jim Henson, the creator of the Muppets, did an amazing job. The story and acting aspects of the movie were just as good. Of course, this movie wasn't going to be shot or written like a Nolan movie, but it did well with showing the fighting. The story of the film wasn't emotionally gripping, but it kept me entertained. This entire movie just had so much heart to it. The voice work was great, and each voice actor sounded different enough to allow anyone to know who was talking in what scene. The only thing I would consider a true negative would be the characters. The 4 turtles don't have any striking personality differences. Ralph did have a bit of a fire to him. Leo did have a few scenes that detailed him as a leader, but if you turned the color of this film black and white, I wouldn't be able to tell which turtle was which half the time. April was a good character in the movie, but her relationship with Casey was a bit off. The man is a literal man-child, but still gets her in the end. Splinter was a nice villain, but other than the attire he wore, nothing about him really stood out. He does look a bit cunty, however. This movie is a great start to the beginning of the decade. Oh, look, my tarot cards have come back. Oh, shit. I had another fucking Superman 3 moment. Not at the beginning, however. This movie began off so bad. The actor for Captain America is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Well, Chief, don't quit your day job. Whatever that is.
Most of the acting is also as bad. Not even comically bad. I was mostly talking about a certain part in the middle of the movie, give or take. Let me set the stage for you. Captain America is in the modern world and he gets picked up by this guy working for the president. He sees the car was made in Germany and a piece of tech from Japan in front of him. At that moment, I thought this movie would do something interesting about how the perception of places changes throughout time and would show how someone from long ago would be afraid of the history they do not know. It's nothing more than just a quick laugh. They move on from something that could have given this movie any kind of footing. This movie feels like a propaganda, where the president of the USA helps Captain America fight off the bad guy. Like, no! The president would shit his pants? If we're talking about Abe Lincoln or George Washington, then sure, yeah, they would kick ass. You telling me this old fuck is ready to take a life?
God bless you, Captain America.
Under TMNT. Hopefully you haven't eaten all your pizza, because the Turtle Bros are coming back, and they're gonna ooze all over you. What the fuck did I just read? A year has passed, and we're back with the Turtles. This movie is a lot of fun and is quite enjoyable for a lot of it, but this movie doesn't really do anything with the Turtles other than try and tell their origin story. In the sequel, near the end they try to do something with the whole wanting to feel special thing, but it ends within a few minutes. Everything that was good in the first kind of returned, however. The animatronic suits are still great, and the action is still well choreographed. At some point, we do get an Ice Vanilla music video where the Turtles are fighting Splinter, and I hate to admit it, but that song slaps. What I don't doubt from a movie made so fast was the actress change of April. I don't want to sound mean for what I'm about to say, it's how I feel. The new actress is a downgrade from the original. At least Casey isn't here, but we do have Kino. I mean, he is just the insert Karate Kid for this movie with no character other than he's the guy who fights. But hey, that's okay, I guess. The story of the Turtles' origin was nice, and the plot points never felt rushed or slowed down. But it just didn't feel great. The writing felt like a second draft. It doesn't have mistakes, but it's missing something special to have a great story. But it's cool to have villains in the movie be attached to the origin. You know what they say? A bit worse than the first, but a million times better than an American propaganda piece. Oh, and if you're wondering where the biggest company in the world is right now, don't worry. They're done looming over and ready to set their own stage. Disney has finally found their way into the superhero movie landscape with The Rocketeer. The company before this made excellent animated movies that have inspired artists for years to come. Most of the characters from before this are still some of the most well-known characters for the brand. They should have stayed with what they were good at. This movie is just not good. The acting is okay. Jennifer Connelly is the only good one, which is funny because her character is an inspiring actress. The directing is okay. The writing is bland. The only thing I really want to talk about is the Rocketeer outfit. It's cool. I would say the worst part of the movie was the main man himself. The Rocketeer is the most white bread man I've ever had the displeasure of watching save the day against a British guy working with the Nazis. Yeah, you heard me correctly. The story is more interesting than the main hero. Movie goes below both TMNT movies, but above Captain America. This was an interesting first step for a company that would soon take over the landscape. But let's return to what's successful right now.
We're so fucking back, baby! Let's go! Ooh, ooh.
Now, I don't know if what I'm about to say is controversial, but this movie is so much better than the first. The directing is better. The writing is better. The acting was amazing. The characters are better. I don't know if you can figure this out, but I love this movie. Catwoman and Penguin being the main villains work so well. Their stories being connected just makes the story more gripping and intriguing as you wonder if Batman can even stop them. And him being close to Catwoman throughout the movie was awesome. The romance in the film was better than anything with Vicky Vale. Every character was different and intriguing and felt integrable to the story at large. It even had you question if Catwoman is really a villain or deserves to get back at her boss for trying to kill her. Going back to Batman as a whole, I did enjoy the little amount of screen time he had. Bruce Wayne being more used was good at showing the two sides of the man and the mask. It made the scenes with Batman more special since he was used less than the first. This movie goes above everything. This series is so far away from dying from what I see, but another now seems to be 1 foot out the door. 4 years in, and we're already seeing the ending of a series. The last TMNT movie did have another year to work with compared to the movie before, but the movie I saw did not feel that way. The 2 movies before were kid movies, but it could be enjoyed by adults. This, however, went to extremes with how silly and wacky it was. It feels like a product rather than a project with passion. The directing has gotten worse. The writing has taken a fucking jump off the roof and plummeted to its death. The acting is just so bland, and the new characters just don't do it for me. For a second, I thought this British guy was Trey Parker, but we won't see him for a few more movies. The switch between the Turtles and Casey, who was acting as both himself and a pirate, was kind of like they were apologizing to the actor about not being in the second movie. In fact, I wish whoever greenlit this movie apologized to me and everyone who worked on it. Because making April feel like the girl from Swamp Thing 2 is a travesty. As the ending to a franchise that laid the groundwork for future attempts at the series, it was weird to see how hard it failed at the end. This feels like Superman all over again. It does feel sad to see it fall on its face, but that does not mean it can't get back up in the future. Right above Rocketeer, but below TMNT 2. This next part was never supposed to be shown to audiences. It was only made to keep the rights to talking about Fantastic Four 1994, but as the generous man I am, here is that review, never seen before. This is a weird movie to watch. Maybe because it was actually supposed to never be watched in the first place. Now, I don't want to get into the whole controversy with this movie, mainly because I 100% expect there to be great in-depth videos on this website that have already done all the research. I just need to watch this movie. Well, need is a strong word. I need air and water. I don't really need poison. I had hope with this movie. The start of it all wasn't even that bad. Sure, the acting from most of the cast was a bit of a bore, but the writing wasn't all too bad. I would compare it to a crime show on the USA Network, but then it goes off-road fast. Ben is boring, Sue is way too young for Reed, Johnny is just a generic young guy. The only good actors in this movie is the guy playing Reed and the guy playing Dr. Doom. Well, as good as theater kids in high school, but better nonetheless. The story doesn't really pick up until like 2/3 of the movie, and by then I just want to take a nap, and I hate taking naps. I would rather do something I hate than continue this movie. This movie goes above Captain America and below Rocketeer. I'm beginning to get tired. I can power through, but I feel like I'm crawling through mud. As I reach the end, I see a hand reaching down to help me get out. Before watching this movie, the only piece of information I knew about the Shadow was that he was the inspiration for Batman. Shadow, in fact, had a movie decades before this one, but I decided not to watch it since I'm not really a fan of really old movies, and I feel as though the whole superhero movie landscape changed after Superman 1978. First, the directing. It's not the best I've ever seen, but the cinematography is excellent. Every time the Shadow uses his powers, it's just so good to watch. The whole mirror final fight was just so satisfying. When Shadow would talk to someone with the manipulating power thing, it was just so cool and mystic. It helps to have great acting. Alec Baldwin is not just a little baby. He's a great mysterious hero. I literally forgot about Boss Baby a few minutes into the film. All the acting is great, and the love interest is the best I've seen yet. She isn't annoying, nor does she feel like a piece of meat for the main man. She has a purpose, and she doesn't immediately fall in love with Alec here. It's the bare minimum that has finally been reached. The writing can be a bit bad at times, but the movie is just so fun, and I didn't get bored. That's all I want from any movie. Anything else is just dessert. This movie only had a main course, but I loved it. Above TMNT 2 and below Batman Returns. Wow. This was a great break. Okay, let's get back into the mud, I guess. Do you remember when Superman 3 tried to have a Clark versus Superman storyline that fell flat? Well, here's round 2. Welcome to the era of the Schumacher. Burton is gone because the studio thought his films were a bit too dark. So to fix this and hopefully stop the moms from calling in, they call up the man who would lead this franchise to the promised land. The bargain bin. But no matter how many jokes I make about Schumacher in this movie, I actually don't hate it. Is it good? No. But is it bad? Yeah, the main thing keeping me alive is, and I'm not kidding, the look of the movie. I don't know who decided Gotham was going to look so neon, but it just makes everything pop off so nicely that you can't not look. Sometimes everything looks a bit too goofy, but it's just a nice change to help fit with the change of the movie's vibe. I just wish the acting or writing was just as nice. Val Kilmer is the worst Batman. That's a fact. The love story in the movie is just as bad as the first movie. Dick Grayson was ruined in this movie. Alfred is the best part of this movie. The acting side of this movie is not really interesting to talk about unless we're talking about the villains. Jim Carrey is underused by being in a role that is just a way to have a generic, crazy Jim Carrey character without any substance. Two-Face is okay, but it's just way too Joker-like. I wish Billy D. Williams had a shot with the villain. Tommy wasn't the worst, but the flip of the coin did not favor us. Above TMNT 3 and below TMNT 2. I already feel like my energy is getting drained. I wonder why. I don't really feel good talking down to this film. It feels like I'm punching a baby. It can't fight back. It's obvious the film had no way to be great. The budget was obviously low. The acting was never going to be good with the original Gal Gadot in the main role. The writing is mostly bad with a few bright spots, but nothing saved this movie. I wouldn't even recommend watching this high. It would probably kill you if you did that. Above Captain America and below Fantastic Four. My new tarot cards came back. Hopefully this one is better. As the final movie for the first Batman franchise, it crashed and burned like Superman. It's only amazing that Superman and Batman both got a 4-movie franchise, and both finales are considered to be the worst for both franchises. Now, I think if Schumacher was given a great script, he could have made a great movie. In fact, speaking of Superman, I think Schumacher would have made a great Superman movie before his death in 2020. The man's vision seems like a fan trying to make a good movie with the tools they were dealt with. But his need to please Warner Brothers led to his downfall. The movie's worse than the movie before, and it shows. The only good thing is Poison Ivy. The actress is great, but is given so many stupid lines.
And you are...
Poison. Poison Ivy.
Above TMNT 3 and below Batman Forever. You know how the CW doesn't have a Batman or a Wonder Woman or Superman? This was the inspiration. This is actually not a movie, but I'll allow it. Mainly since the show it was supposed to start didn't actually happen, so I feel it's okay to add failed show pilots since they're always around an hour or so, technically making them movies. As long as the pilot failed and there was no show made from it, I'll allow it. And I'm kinda happy I did watch this. Of course, it's not good, but it was interesting. If this did create a TV show, I probably would watch it. It has the same charm of a CW movie with the whole not really good, but charming enough to keep you as long as it needs to. The only thing I consider to be good is the actress for Fire. She's amazing. If this was just a show about her being a superhero / struggling actor, I would watch the shit out of that. Below TMNT 3 and below Batman and Robin, history is about to be made. But I don't know if it should be written down or burned to hell. Before I talk about the movie, I would like to bring up that this is the first movie to have a black man as the main role. That's cool. Blade and Black Panther may be way more popular and definitely deserve the fame, but this being the first movie with a black-led character deserves some love. Unless I'm completely fucking wrong, then I blame everybody but myself. Hey, look at that. I'm already becoming a YouTuber. I just wish the first black-led superhero movie was good. It's okay, but this moment in history should have been triumphant. This is all just a sin. Now, I've never read a Spawn comic, nor did I watch the animated show, but I will say that this movie does not make me want to experience more than what I saw, unfortunately. The acting from White is not good. The writing is painfully average, and the CGI is just bad. If I wasn't doing this entire marathon, I would have exited the film within like 30 minutes. Above Fantastic Four and below The Rocketeer. Alright, next movie please. Wait, that's just a basketball game. Oh no. We're going from a monumental moment like having the first black superhero on the big screen to the first IRL basketball player to play a superhero on the big screen. Unless I'm wrong about that, then I blame Shaq. This movie did have a nice family dynamic. That's it. That is what I liked about the film. Do I really need to mention the generic look of the film or the bland writing or maybe the fact that Shaq isn't a good actor? Above Justice League of America and below Batman and Robin. Do you know about yin and yang? If this is a kid-friendly adventure, what the hell is the yang to it? We're now away from the world of sunshine and rainbows to a world of Mormons and evil porn directors. Do you want to guess who had the better story? This movie might be greater than a movie starring a sports player, but that doesn't mean it's that much better at balling out. Of course, the pacing, acting, writing, and a lot of other movie things were competent compared to Steel, but not by that much, to be honest. The story is definitely an adventure that takes you from point A to point B with no bumps, but it won't fill you with satisfaction. You have to swallow the fact that this movie at times just looks like shit. The writing is good, but sometimes it shifts up and down gently in quality. Overall, this is definitely a product of the times with very sexual jokes that are either kind of good or just straight up trash. But it's interesting to see Matt and Trey use this kind of comedy and type of storytelling back then as they still do now. Above TMNT 2, but below The Shadow. We're not finished yet. It's time to edge a bit longer. But I'm afraid it won't be able to last with the next movie. This is the part of the story where I hit a brick wall. I don't know what to tell you about this section. You probably expect me to make some jokes about this pilot failing so hard and talking about David Hasselhoff like he's Jesus. But that's not happening. Because I didn't watch it. I tried to. Well, that's a lie. I didn't try, but that's like trying to face your fear of heights by jumping off the Trade Center. The first few minutes of the failed pilot was just so shitty that it made me feel violently sick. I don't feel bad about skipping this. But I need to make a rule to control how many times I do this. Because this is a challenge. And to please you at home, here's the rule I think is fair. Do you remember that old TV show with those red demons that were called whammies or something? Well, that's what I have. 3 whammies. I can only use 3 through this entire challenge so I can keep my sanity. The first one is going to be used on Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. If I use all 3, I don't get any more. If that doesn't seem fair to you, I don't know what to tell you. Let's just move along to the next movie and act like nothing happened. Just move along. Nothing to see here. Skedaddle. Get lost. Bye-bye. See you later. Crocodile. I did not use that one correctly. When I tell you that this is one of the best superhero movies yet, I'm not lying. Does it sound like I'm lying to you? What do you mean, yes? This should have been the first minority-led superhero movie. But I can't complain with how progressive these few short years have been with adding in non-white main characters. Without being born in the 90s, it showed me the current changing culture. Does this answer if superhero movies matter within society? I don't know. We're only like a 10th of the way through, so let's not make assumptions yet. Especially after writing this entire script, I'm right now on the 3rd part of this series. I'll go to YouTube for a break and find out that the writer had to fight to keep Blade black. That's like making a white Black Panther. I mean, you can't just... Oh yeah. Going into the movie, there's nothing I can say other than how good this is in every aspect. The story is so 90s with the edge, but everything else is just perfect. My favorite part of this movie is the action. It is so intense and well choreographed and shot. This movie should be the blueprint for every modern movie that features any amount of combat featuring people that don't have laser eyes. This is not the best movie of the decade, however, as I believe Batman Returns had a better story, but Blade does become number 2, beating TMNT. One more movie left. I hope it's an all-star. The first movie I can remember watching was called Night at the Museum. The movie featured Ben Stiller as a father trying to do right by his son and making everything alright. It resonated with me as a son with a father who would never do that. So Ben Stiller became my father in a sense. And as the sequel came out, I rooted for my father. But when the 3rd and final movie came out, I was older. I was even more distant with my real father. And it doesn't help with the fact the 3rd movie wasn't good. I lost another father that day. And like clockwork, there he is again. Ben Stiller, representing another part of myself. Anger inside a satire. Heartbeat begins to rise. Blood boils. I'm getting angry at the genre and this challenge. But I'm not gonna run. Let's talk about this movie before I start smashing a van. The movie itself is fine. It's charming, of course, but it doesn't have anything worthwhile to compliment it on other than it didn't get me bored. Actually, there was something I did like about the film. The side plot with the shoveler and his family was nice and added a slice of life element in the movie that made it a bit grounded. The villain is a bit bland. It's interesting, however, to see the first superhero who is actually a bad guy plot point, so I guess the movie deserves some kind of reward. Here you go, Ben Stiller. I place this movie above TMNT 2, but below Orgasmo. And that was the second part of watching every single superhero movie ever made. Here are the overall rankings of the movies of this decade. Here is the overall score of the decade. The 90s may have had some real stinkers, but this decade just had so much fun. that I can't put it below the 80s. Now, I'd rather watch Blade or TMNT again than Superman 4. So in ranking the decades, I'm going to put the 90s above the 80s. Hopefully, this means the farther we go, the movies will start getting better. But let's just see how the next decade fares to see if that hypothesis is correct. The first half, the 2000s, is up next. I split the decade in half because I'll be watching like 50-something plus movies, so I prefer to make 30-minute videos instead of hour-long ones since they would take so much longer, and I just don't have the good attention span to do so. Hopefully, we're getting closer to our conclusion of if superhero movies have had some kind of impact. But as we get closer, I feel afraid of finding something I don't understand. Something I'm afraid of. Afraid of what people will see of these videos and assume of me. As though watching superhero movies is in my genes. As though my need of watching these movies is some kind of mutation.